Good evening, campers. It's me, Kieran. I thought we would take it back to the beginning because I've now finished The End by Knausgård. After reading over 3,000 pages, all 6 books, I have now finished the My Struggle series. Let's have a look at some highlights. Let's go. I go to Cardiff Waterstones and I go to the fiction section. It's all alphabetical by last name. I go to K and oh no, it's not there. There's a visible gap of where this would be. Your boy had only rung up the day before and asked him to reserve it. Woo! Like me?
Yeah, of course.
Am I okay?
I don't like you. I love you. There's a difference.
What's the difference?
Huh?
What's the difference?
Well, I can still love you, but not like you.
I used to be skinny back in the day. Who wants the party? Caffeine, as we all know, is God's gift to us to say you don't need sleep. Where did I go wrong in the world? More logical to me to cut them so as if they looked like scars, because I could deal with that more to the fact that I was putting on weight. So this wee young Kieran, here's a picture of what I used to look like, just sweating, frantically trying to figure out what I can do so she doesn't notice, and there's me trying to solve the circumstance. What that is, I do not know, but in some way, shape or form I will be able to teach. Painstaking. It is mundane. I slogged my ass through this book. Now I'm not one of these people who go, oh guys, this book was amazing, it was 700 pages and I read it in 24 hours. Wow, it was really good because it was so quick to read. Knausgård's writing isn't great. They tell him, you're too focused on the little stuff. You write about yourself too much. Oh gosh, God, give it 30 years. I have extended and renewed The End, which apparently is over 1,000 pages of Knausgård. Yay, woohoo, wow, can't believe it. Wow, what a lucky boy I am. Yes, The End brings us to the end of My Struggle, which thus ends the My Struggle with My Struggle series. And this all happened because Rebecca from Rebecca Eats Books thought it would be quite funny as a title, and I thought I would make it into a series. And here is a message from Rebecca Eats Books & Co.
Hey Kieran, I heard you read all of My Struggle. You did it. You read them all. I'm so sorry.
Right, let's stop messing around. That's way louder than I thought it was going to be. The End begins at the publication of the first book, Death in the Family, where Knausgård has received some attention for his work and his blissfully truthful account of his father dying, him going through the funeral, reflecting on their relationship, reflecting on both of them growing up as parent and child, going through the funeral, going through mourning, going through the procedures that you need to do once someone has died, and dealing with the legalities and the bureaucracies that come with someone dying as everything moves possession into your hands. And furthermore, what makes a Knausgård book is reflecting on the mundane, reflecting on the mediocre, reflecting on the quotidian life that most people know. Most people, and I'm assuming yourself, know what it's like to make a cup of coffee in the morning. You know what it's like to engage in mundane small talk. You know what it's like to have gripes and sweat out the small stuff. That's what Knausgård has done throughout the majority of this series. But what he has maintained, what he has pertained, what he persists is that he's telling the truth. So far within this series, it's all about being truthful. It's about stripping everything back, almost to a confessional state. Indulgent but equally reveling in shameful moments, things that you don't actually want people to know about yourself. But in order to get to the truth, he has to expose those moments. He has to get to the bone of it. He has to make sure that he's telling it truthfully, because otherwise it's just fiction. So what happens within the 1,000-page tome, The End? Well, Someone doesn't think Knausgård is telling the truth. Someone doesn't think that what happened in the first book happened in that way. Introducing Knausgård's uncle Gunnar, who says that he has hyperbolized, saying that he has fictionalized the account in order to make the story more desirable, therefore more sellable, therefore more profitable. Knausgård, upon hearing it, starts to doubt his being. He starts to question, well, has he been telling the truth? Well, he thought things happened that way. Well, what if they didn't? Does that negate this series? Does it nullify this project? Whose truth does he have to tell? Is it what he feels, or is it the objective truth? And within the end, this is where the key to unlocking all of this comes into. Now, I've said throughout this series, I'm not sure what the purpose of this is. I understand what he's doing and why he's doing it, and why he's taken on this very elaborate style of dealing with the nitty-gritty and the minor details. But I've never understood the key. Why has he done this? And this book answers that question. But before Knausgård can talk and deal with that, he has to live his life. See him with his children, cooking them food, putting on their favourite TV programme like he does every other day. Going through the rigmarole of one of your children not wanting to make the food that you have made them, even though the fish cakes are utterly delicious and that they have eaten it many times before. Dealing with the animosity that comes to the bedtime routine that they do every single night at the exact same time, that the kids should just know this routine. And why can't they seem to understand that when it hits this time, you go to bed? This is what we always do. Knausgård really does drive home the repetition of his life, and that he's not anyone extraordinary. He's not anyone living a life of Riley. He's just an ordinary man dealing with his kids who are ordinary, until the first book is published, until people start looking at him differently. People start giving him a status. People start seeing him as someone who has a voice. Maybe he's the voice of the people. Maybe he's the conduit for people to finally get things off their chest, to relate to someone in life that they can't find, because people don't want to be truthful about this situation. People want to pretend that everything's okay, and Knausgård allows a catharsis. Yet Knausgård doesn't feel he is this type of person. He's someone who goes to the supermarket to buy food for a dinner party and struggles to find the type of wine that he wants. He's the person that when he says to people he's a writer, they go, okay, wherever. It's only within this certain circle that he has prominence. It's within this train of thought that Knausgård begins to reflect upon what other authors have done. How have they dealt with grief? How have they dealt with the death of the parent? That's what started this entire project off. This is where he decided to tell the truth. And one of the authors that he mentions is the controversial Peter Handke and his novel Sorrow Beyond Dreams, where Handke within 80 pages talks about his mum who committed suicide and how he honestly feels a distance between himself and his mother. Yet Handke's staunch distancing that he pertains changes once the proxemics change. Once he sees his mother laid out, dead before she gets buried, then something changes in him. Humorously, Knausgård does jest towards this point that what Handke is able to do within 80 pages, it's taken him over 3,000 pages. Humorously, Knausgård does jest towards the idea that what Handke is able to achieve in 80 pages, it looks like he's going to take over 2,000 pages. At least the guy was honest, eh? Knausgård also has said many times that Handke is the most prominent European writer. But within the end, we also talk about someone else who is a prominent writer, someone who truthfully, by talking about what people felt, about what people wanted to say, but they couldn't, someone who's able to be that conduit of truth, someone who had a platform, someone that could be the voice of the everyman, someone who, if they weren't the person that they were, the little book that they had written would be in a library somewhere, and some obscure scholars, a few students might have stumbled across it. That the book itself doesn't have any meaning, it doesn't have any value until you assign it to the person. And this is where Knausgård moves not efficiently, not effectively, but just goes on a 400-page essay about the life of Adolf Hitler and how there are some parallels between Adolf Hitler and Knausgård. And by Jove, it bloody works. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that at all. But you understand what Knausgård is trying to say. He's not trying to justify what Hitler had done, but that Hitler purported to tell the truth. People believed in what he said because they thought it was true. But Hitler was an opportunist. He was conniving. He was able to play on people's emotions. That's how Hitler got into the position that he was. And has Knausgård, by purporting to tell the truth, but in some way misconstrued it, that he got it wrong, until we find out that it was a false accusation, that the uncle had got it wrong. And Knausgård here, he wants to end it. He wants to end this project. He realizes that by telling the truth to the extent that he is, he's almost divulging too much. He wants to go back to supporting his family. He wants to have the little moments where he uses an apple and speaks Appleish to his children. It feels easier said than done. Even towards the end of the end, Knausgård divulges information about Linda's hospitalization due to her mental health, how she constantly falls down and picks herself back up, almost giving Knausgård a means to go, do I need to tell any of this information? And Knausgård in the background seems to be saying, I'm only writing this because I know my reader wants to read it. I'm being as truthful and as honest because it's expected from the audience. They want to see how much Knausgård can say, how much is he willing to spill, how much is he willing to step over the line for the audience that he's amassed due to being that honest. Which one is he doing more? Is he telling his truth or the truth that the audience wants? The audience that they want to participate in. It's these aspects that have made him controversial whilst equally making him lauded. And what's interesting is that Knausgård has reflected that he was more truthful towards the beginning of the series than he is moving into the latter part, because he had fallen into, well, I need to talk about these things because that's what the reader expects now, and I'm more than happy to tell you this honestly. I'm willing to give you my truth. I'm willing to subjugate my children and wife to this because of you, dear reader. This meta-narration within the end really does solidify what he has done. The end as a metafiction and almost a auto-commentary on auto-fiction is really the seal upon the other 5 books. They're the justification, they are the reasoning, they are the clarification. And yet to end it upon this book feels equally the right thing to do, but voyeuristically, there's a bit of you that wants it to keep going. Despite the fact that I haven't enjoyed this series from beginning to the end, there's a bit of you thinking, what else could he talk about? This is a strong book with a strong end, and is it worth reading all 2,500 pages before it just for this? I think it is. and I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Now I could say bye, I could do bye, I could do that, but we've started at the beginning here. We've spoken to Rebecca, who started this off, but there's one other person that, if you followed this series, that we spoke to. And I reached out to them and wondered if they could spare some final words. This is the email I sent to Longestine Jambalaya. Enjoy this email. It has been a tumultuous time, but I have neared the end of Knausgård's entire series. I have a request. So I have reviewed and documented my time with my struggle and created the following playlist on YouTube. I mentioned that I emailed Vintage and you have become Longestine Jambalaya. Now an integral part to the series, the foundation of Knausgård lore, and, most importantly, a beloved anonymous hero to those who have watched. It would be fitted, I feel, if you have some final words to tie this series up. You didn't know you were a part of this, but I couldn't have asked for a better Longestine Jambalaya. You go, Longestine Jambalaya. Today it's the 10th of January 2022. I sent that email on the 4th of October. I don't think I'm getting an answer back. And now my struggle with my struggle has ended.